Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. Spoke earlier today with Ron Little. He's the CEO of Wolfden Resources, TSXV listed company with assets in Maine. They're chasing zinc, a little bit of lead, silver, copper and gold in there as well. We hear from him what he thinks of mining in Maine, and we give our opinion, thoughts on the conversation and the company in cruxinvestor.com/club, along with company reports, analysis from experts from around the world, summaries of other interviews that we have done. And there's a thriving community of investors in there sharing their thoughts and ideas. And if you want to go and have a look, there's a free 7-day trial. And of course, we want your feedback as well. So do give us a like and leave your comments. And if you want to see what we discussed, take a look in the description below. Ron, how are you doing, sir?
Very good, Matt. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. So where are you joining us from today?
Joining you from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Ontario, Canada. I've never been there. What's Ottawa like as a town, city?
That's a small town compared to Toronto, Montreal. We're kind of between the two. So to promote mining, I do have to venture out of Ottawa.
So what's Ottawa known for? It's like technology, isn't it? Is that your thing?
It is, yeah. No, in fact, as far as investors go, there's a bit of a analog between, the tech and the mining as far as a risk appetite. But I don't really over promote here in town. People still think of Bre-X, ironically, and there was, I think, quite a few investors in those days. So when I started up Previous Juniors, I sort of had to keep it, to the cities where people are focused on mining.
Yeah, got Bre-X. There's a blast from the past. Look, why don't we kick off and you give us that 1-minute overview of the business, then we'll pick it up from there.
Sure. So Wolfden was really started up by Ewan Downey 7 years ago, and I only joined 3 years ago when he picked up the Picket Mountain project in Maine. So his focus was always polymetallic, like Wolfden number 1, which had a huge success finding actually a very similar grade deposit in the territory. So Picket Mountain represents really one of the highest grade deposits in the United States, in North America, really, that has any chance, I think, of being developed in the next 5 years. And I think, what we need the market to understand is this is a high margin asset, even though it's only 20% precious metals. It's so high grade that even in lower metal prices, this is going to be an economic deposit. So we're trying to explore it while we're trying to build it. We're the first guys back in Maine, so we're actually pre-permitting to show people that, Maine is open for business. Meanwhile, we try to make it bigger.
Okay, fantastic. That gives people a bit of color as to what you're trying to do. Where were you before you turned up here 3 years ago?
I was with Orezone as really the founder back in, it's been so long ago now, I forget, like 1996. And, within a year ended up in Burkina Faso and never had been. And we turned Orezone into, I'd say, one of the better success stories in West Africa, and had fun there finding and developing mines. So, very much, I'm a guy who wants to build something if I can, but if a bigger company wants to buy us out and that's the best thing for shareholders, we can do that too.
Okay, so I want to get into the business model. I usually kind of get stuck into that fairly quickly. But there's a few kind of outliers here which I would need to understand a little bit better. So Maine, how well is that known for mining? Because I'd never really kind of considered it as a destination for miners.
Yeah, and it's not known for mining. People think of Maine as lobster and timber, and for mining guys, you're better to think of the timber, because we're actually in the timber business too by default. Northern Maine is basically like Canada. It's timber and moose and all things wild, and the geology there is really an extension of the world famous camp in New Brunswick. So it is well endowed, it has huge potential, and it's underexplored, and that's why we're there. We've picked up what was discovered by Getty Oil in the 80s, and as Maine probably went green before New Brunswick did, meaning you needed exploration permits in the 80s and 90s. Everybody in Canada now needs those permits, but under the new mining code, Maine's actually said you don't need all those little permits anymore. So it's actually made it more efficient for us to explore.
Okay, because I'm looking at the share price from 2017, 2018. Obviously, end of 2017, share price, went rocketed up and then kind of fell back down as quickly as it rose. Was that off the back of this new mining code, or was it the back of a new project in Maine? What was the driver for that? So I can understand the history.
Yeah, no, two things why it went up. They announced that they picked up this high grade project that, shows enough tonnage to build a mine, really. And number two, the zinc price was still on a roar, right? Like the zinc price was heading towards $1.60 and everybody was pretty euphoric on base metals. Then the next year, metal price sank back down to $1. And, we didn't discover a brand new lens with the first few drill holes. So I think the shine came off on the exploration, the immediate exploration upside while the metal price was going down.
Okay, and what brings on to the second component there, which is zinc. The world of zinc over the last few years, as you say, it's been a tricky ride, especially the last 12 months. It's popped back up again. Is that getting you additional interest, renewed interest?
I think the base metal companies are coming back to life because gold's had such a good run, right? And on a percentage basis, zinc really went up 40% in the last 3-4 months. So I think we present the better value opportunity than a gold story because we don't have that attention. So I think the real, the long time mining investor who's done well has said, I've made some big profits on the gold stocks. I'm going to take some of that and put it into some junior base metal names. Right. So I think that's why we've had our sort of 10 cent to 30 cent rise as well.
Right. So, and then just coming on to this, because you used the phrase quite a lot. You talk about new mining code. I mean, how new is it? You said it's simpler, but what's the big deal about it being new?
Yeah. So I would say the issue with the old code was you really couldn't, or the bigger companies, couldn't see the finish line. If you have any doubts that you're actually going to get the permit, then you turn and invest elsewhere. The new code streamlined the process to being 2 years, which included the baseline work and a feasibility study, which is what every mine development goes through. And they basically said, if you do that and tick the boxes, you'll get your permit. So that in itself underpins the whole rationale of going to Maine, is that, it seems that it's open for business. And then the second part is, there are some negatives that come with a new code. Unfortunately, they banned open pit mining, which made no issue with this project because it's a high grade underground ore body.
Right.
And the second negative would seem that they imposed automatically always a dry stack tailings, which in our case, again, is not an issue because we would have put the dry stack in anyway.
Right. And so the final outlier for me, and we'll get stuck into the project after this, I promise, was, and you've alluded to it already, you're sort of, by default, a timber company as well. It's contributed a little bit of revenue to you guys. And I've seen this once before in Guinea, where they took up some land and chopped down a lot of hardwood in their case, which afforded them the ability to build a quite significant airport. So I know it's a nice idea. So tell us how you came up with it.
Well, the property was held by, let's say, a timber trust, an investment, and it was being harvested on an annual basis. And so when they sold it to us, they said, well, you got to buy the remaining timber. So we did that. And for the first 2 years, we had both of our neighbors who are timber families basically harvesting the wood on an ongoing basis. And with our share price down at the end of 2019, I approached both of them and said, how about we treat this like mining guys would, and we sell that timber to you forward. You can keep harvesting it every year as you're doing, but we get some money up front and we can keep drilling. So we essentially sold $5 million worth of timber for $4.5 and got $3 million up front. And that totally financed our ongoing drill program without issuing a share.
Okay, it's fascinating, actually, and a nice contribution. So, how much did it contribute to the bottom line?
$3 million US this year.
Right. Okay.
And then we get another $1.5 million in the coming years. So and the only unfortunate part is there's only so many trees.
I was about to say.
There might be another $1 million left in 5 years, but we're the big numbers aren't are behind us.
Okay, but it's obviously non-dilutory contributions was the bottom line. Like, let you get on to do what you want to do, which is deliver your business plan. So let's get on to your business plan. So you've talked about what you're chasing. It's a zinc-led project. There are some byproducts in copper and gold and silver too, but the zinc is where you're at, and in today's market, I guess you don't mind telling that story. A year ago, perhaps wasn't such a strong story. So, what have you set out to try to do? What did Ewan set out to try to do, and what have you been brought in to try and solve?
So the ore body sits in a 30-kilometer belt, and typically these ore bodies, there's either many lenses or many deposits over that kind of a distance. So we felt that Getty, as the previous owner, Getty Chevron, they really didn't fully test the belt. So the first goal is to drill around the two lenses that are there to see if there's another one nearby. And then, of course, you understand the ore body better. You know, these things are laid down in an old ocean basin, and then they're tipped sideways. So as you drill it, you start to figure out, what's the underlying architecture. And then that helps you find the next lens or the next ore body. So we're still in that stage. We've hit some holes and we're finding out, really sulfidized and altered material. So we're feeling like we're getting close to finding something. In the meantime, we said, let's start to push this deposit through the permitting hoop, because there's enough there for a 10-year mine life already. And that's kind of the underlying, key point the market doesn't understand, is this thing's already a mine to be built. By making it bigger, it's probably just promoting a takeover premium, because it's the equivalent to a 1 million ounce gold deposit that you'd mine 100,000 ounces a year. And that's usually a pretty good analogy for most gold investors.
Okay, and that's a nice start. So, but what do you want to do? Do you want to build this thing out to show people its scale? Because you're talking about high grade. Okay, you've made that point. You've made it well, which is the fact that it's significant. Well, one of the most significantly high grade zinc projects in North America. Okay, and at today's prices, that should suggest that you could. Well, in fact, what do you know about the economics? What do you think you know about the economics?
Well, we just put the PEA out just over a week ago, and I think, to sum it up, the mine has an all-in sustaining cost of under 40 cents a pound in zinc, right? So we haven't seen zinc price ever go there in the last few decades. So, when you have 10 years of life in front of you now with that kind of a price, it shows you it's high margin. And of course, if you can make it bigger, you can now expand the size, because we're proposing a permit for a very small capacity, which is 1,200 tons a day. If you find one more lens, you can push it to 2,000, really without changing the design at all. You're going to have slightly more tails left behind, but the economics almost double with just an incremental increase in the daily tonnage, right?
Right, but if I look at that, and that's why I wanted to ask you about the economics. The economics to me sound good. It's a PEA. It's early stage, plus or minus 30% on that. But people use that as a chance to sell off. I mean, because you haven't seen these prices since, crikey, early 2018, right? So to 19, I should say. So there's a bit of a sell-off recently, because I think since about the 10th of June, you've doubled your share price. Do you think that was a fair and reasonable reaction from the marketplace, or should they be looking deeper into the numbers that you announced in your PEA?
Yeah, no, I to back up your point, I don't think this was just a sell-off on the PEA. We announced literally the day the market started to crumble in general. Every stock started selling off when we announced that news. And when I look back at it now, it was like a bit of a perfect storm, was that there was liquidity. And as you said, guys who bought in maybe even at 10 cents had a chance to get out and say, hey, I don't like where COVID's going. I don't like where the election in the US is going. I'm going to take some money off the table. All of the long-term investors, including our two biggest ones, Kinross and Altius, I've got no indication from them that, they're sellers. In fact, more they're supporters of what we're doing because of the economics.
Yeah, it's hard to know what the big guys do, right? What they tell you and what they do is usually never closely correlated. I mean, so how are they shareholders? I mean, they're obviously just legacy shareholders, or have they actually put cold hard cash in recently?
No. Altius was really critical to buy the property. So they single-handedly they put up essentially 8 million to buy this property, right? And they own a small royalty, and they're an insider, so they can't sell a share without reporting it. And their chief geologist is, he's one of the top 10 out there that knows these kind of deposits. Did his thesis on it. Buckens in Newfoundland is the deposit, and it's a real analog to what we have at Pickett Mountain because we're in the same belt. And they had 7 lenses. We've only found 2 so far. Kinross, they looked at this in the original days and said, we love high profit underground mines. We could use some diversity with our metals, and there's enough precious metals to make it interesting. So they're too. Both of them are engaged on the geology and trying to help us find more. That's what they're after.
What do you mean, like Kinross were involved from the early days? What date are we talking about?
Oh, sorry. Like they came in a year and a half ago in March. They invested at 20 cents a share, no warrant. Came in on the basis that, it's in our backyard. We like the grade. I've got I'd say a relationship with the senior management. They know the kind of work that Ewan and I do. So they're supporters, and they look at it as, they like our business plan. And if we double the size of this, they'd likely buy us. If we don't, they know this is a solid investment.
What are you, 28 million market cap Canadian? Yeah, about that. That's a company of size and note for them, is it?
Not at well. I mean, it's not about the company; it's about the project, right? There's not many projects of this grade with upside sitting on a highway with all the local infrastructure, and they did the same thing with the Buckhorn mine in Washington State. If they go on to say this was our most profitable mine, and it wasn't huge, but it made the most money, and that underscores, a lot of these bigger companies, they're still all about margins, right?
Yeah, for sure. So why do you think there's a disconnect between that and what the market is giving you credit for?
Well, back to where we are, everybody still doubts, is the new mining code real? Is Maine open for business? That's still going to take time. This is why the rezoning application that we're under now, if we can get that approved by mid next year, it's a huge milestone for us because it's effectively a mini mine permit application. We still have a public meeting and a public hearing. So if we're going to see any major intervention, we'll see it in this process. Then, of course, the market still thinks generally 10 million tons is what you need as a base metal deposit, but they're not thinking it twice the grade. So to sell 5 million tons at 20% zinc equivalent is still, believe it or not, a bit of a challenge. And perhaps the only way we get there is finding another lens. So, we're going to give them another lens is what we're after.
Okay. And has the market told you that? I mean, or do you just think as geologists, as a technical guy, we need to find one?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that question because it relates to 7 well-known analysts that I took to the property in February 2018. 3 of them launched, within a month after getting back, and those are basically Beacon, Canaccord, and Cormark. And the other 4 basically said, Ron, this is fantastic, but, it's still a Getty Chevron discovery, and there's so much potential. We've got a slightly more conservative network. As soon as you find another lens, we're gonna write you up. So there's call it. If an analyst is telling me that, that's what the rest of the market's going to be telling me too.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's kind of good feedback, good analysis. So, like talking market cap, talking shareholders, etc. Can it give us an idea of your financial position at the moment? You raised some money back in January, about $3 million through the timber sale. How much have you got left? When do you need to raise capital next?
Yeah, we're probably sitting at about 2 million Canadian, the Treasury now. The drilling program will take us into October, November, and we'll still have over $1 million in the Treasury at that point in time. Naturally, we're hoping that we're going to tie into a new lens as part of this drill program, and then we would want to extend that program and finance it based on the extension.
Okay, because you've been flying mag over the area. I mean, how do you go about targeting, zinc lenses? I mean, I don't know enough about it to comment. So, what's the process you're going through? You don't seem to be burning through a lot of cash, which I guess is great, but at the same time, it suggests that not much is happening. You could argue.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we're spoon feeding the drill program because of one drill, right? So again, it's let's test a few of the targets we've defined. And a lot of it comes down to, you'd mentioned the airborne survey. We flew the 30 kilometers. You look for a lookalike target. We've gone onto the ground to test which ones are worth targeting. And we've had to talk to some of our neighbors as well, who are the timber companies, to say we would like to go and drill a couple of targets on your ground. So we're out to option some of their mineral rights, right? So we're going to expand eventually into the full belt, not just what's onto our property, but we're still working our way through, let's call it a dozen targets that are right on our property. So yes, we're not going as fast as the current and patient market would like to see us, but we're scientific guys. You got a relatively small balance sheet, and we're trying to create the most value with a little amount of money at the moment.
Yeah, you've got a big team. You are quite technical guys, and you're going about it probably the right way. Do you feel that? I mean, who's the market guy? Would you say on here? I mean, I know Scott, who's an advisor, and we've spoken with you a couple of times. But who's the market facing guy?
Well, it's really Raheem and I that are. Raheem Laka is really, he and I are the market face, other than Ewan Downey, who by default, he's CEO of Premier Gold, and I'd say maybe 1 out of 3 or 4 meetings, they're going to say, well, what's going on with our little Wolfden story, right? So, in reality, he might still be the biggest promoter of the story because he's founded it. And this is, he's still involved and a big shareholder.
Yeah, okay. So like PEA's happened. You got one drill going. You've done a bit of airborne. Great, but it, as you say, the market kind of wants more, and you're trying to tell the story of how rich this is, and it's a high margin project, etc. But you're moving at a pace which maybe is not taking advantage of this market at the moment. So, I mean, do you need to go and raise more money and take advantage of what has been up until the last sort of week and a half quite an exciting, frothy market, really? And I think that people do believe that this little setback we've gone through, it was expected, but it's going to get frothier for base metals real soon, for battery metals real soon. So why don't you be a bit more aggressive?
Yeah, I have heard that story before. And, to your point, 3 weeks ago, the market was a lot frothier than it is now, right? We continue to have corporate interest as well, not just from the two guys that we've got at the table. So, we're not guys to sit around and just sort of and wait. There's always something going on in the background, and certainly, we're going to be as aggressive as we can within reason. Again, caveat is sensitive to over diluting the company. So, all I can tell you is stay tuned for more to come on that front.
Okay. No, but I'm just trying to get a picture of the kind of team you've got here. Are you cautious? Are you aggressive? Are you, have you got a view of the market that's, setting the tone here? Or is it just the way you guys have always done it? It's worked before, it'll work again. I mean, that's what I was trying to get a sense of, the conversations that you guys have. I mean, do you debate these various options, or is it you've made your mind up, it's a set course, set process? How's it work?
No, I would say we've got a balance between very aggressive exploration and development, right? Maybe by now you've pictured that, I maybe wear the development hat, the mining hat. Guys like you and have made, really made their success with exploration. And, when you're trying to, the stock has moved, and the last thing investors want to find out, in my opinion, right now, is they come in and invest because the PEA is underscored to huge value, and then they get whacked with a large financing that dilute them down. So to me, it's that balance of, when do we do the next deal? How's it going to be? Who's it going to be with? but certainly we're definitely out to explore and, ring the bell, as it were. In reality, 50% more reserves or a mineable reserve than what was the mineable resource in the PEA still underscores a much bigger, more robust project than the PEA shows. So, I think at the end of the day, we find 50% more is still going to be a huge upside for the story.
Okay, so there's exploration upside in this. You talk about in the PowerPoint about securing additional high-grade projects. Is that through the drill bit, or are you talking about securing additional properties in the region?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that as well. Like we have been actually working on other acquisitions, and some of them are, Maine is unique in the fact that it's all mineral rights. You don't go stake a claim from the government. And we've found some of the properties that we like have mineral rights that have been, passed on in a will or a trust. And to get the final piece can be very long and slow as you track down who owns them and try to get them to commit to what everybody else is committed to. So I'd say a small negative in the short term, but there are other quality assets that will eventually be a part of our portfolio.
I bet they're cheap. No one wants to be in Maine, do they? It sounds like.
So far, I would say, it's funny when you'd ask that, because I thought, I'm going to get on here and really promote how great Maine is, but we're really enjoying being the only guys there, right? Like, we do have that 30-kilometer belt, and fortunately, that's given us a lot of time to build up a great rapport with the local people and the local companies. Our next door neighbor is one of the bigger timber families in the States, and I would say he's gotten comfortable with the mining guys that have come to town. And I think that's really going to do us well in the permitting process, because we're being good custodians and we're hiring local people first. And, we're trying to be Maynards here, even though we're deemed a Canadian company. We're going to end up building an American subsidiary, right? Like everybody we try to hire here from here forward is going to take the company towards a U.S. company, right?
Do you like lobster?
Yeah. I do like lobster. The lobster rolls are fantastic, but we are about 3 hours from the coast, so I don't want people to get the idea that we're laying on the beach and eating lobster rolls.
That sounds like a nice life to me. People look wrong. I mean, that's a really nice run through. So, look, first time we've spoken or indeed heard this story, although we do know Ewan reasonably well. It's kind of interesting. You kind of, with the PEA coming out, I think the numbers they're indicative of the potential there. You do need to find that next lens, it sounds like to me. And you've got a process in mind as to how you're going to go about doing that. So I look forward to catching up with you soon. What do you think the rest of this year holds for you in terms of news flow? Well,
we've already drilled over a half a dozen holes and roughly hit on half of them. So the labs are still slow, where it's about an 8-week turnaround. So I would say every 2 to 3 weeks moving forward, we're going to put out results on the sulfide, zones that we've hit. And the caveat here is that we've still been testing around the limits of the current ore body. And one point we didn't touch on is that it's still open at depth, but it gets much more expensive to drill those deeper holes. So sort of the final plan on drilling is just to keep drilling and following the high grade deeper, which normally on these deposits, it goes deeper. But we'd truly rather find something close to surface, which is much more economic. But that's still in our back pocket. And so, there'll be bits on the news. We hope to get a public meeting before Christmas on the rezoning. And that in itself, if it goes well, is an underscore that, Maine's open for business. But I think the market's going to wait till, we get an approval or not on the rezoning before they really get comfortable that Maine's open for business.
You think, so what do you think the timing is on the rezoning?
We may get a public meeting before Christmas, and then they'll debate that until Q1. And so I'm basically saying, be patient till Q2 because of COVID. Things take time. Public meetings might even be a Zoom call. We're in a bit of a different era at the moment, trying to run events that were normally face-to-face.
Okay. But business as usual till then. Okay. Look, Ron, appreciate that. Thank you so much for introducing the company to us. I'd love to catch up with you again, pick up the phone when there's some news, please.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Matt.